All right, so this is episode 101, and you may be asking yourself, where's episode 100? If you don't follow me on social media or know me in person, then you probably haven't seen that episode 100 got lost to the ages. As it stands, it was a banger of an episode too, almost 4 hours long. It was me, Mark Unseen, Joe Hawk, and Chris Pittman, who you may know from a past episode. He's a paranormal and UFO researcher. He's on Ancient Aliens, the TV show. He was on the Bridgewater Triangle documentary and things like that. Go back and listen to his episode if you haven't heard it already. I don't recall the exact episode number, but it's early on, probably within the first 30 episodes. But yeah, so what happened was it was the first episode that we had where there was any technical difficulties and glitches. The card that it was recorded on, the SD card, had a crack in it. And when I went to transfer it from the card to my computer so that I could upload it, it started just glitching out and frying and doing all kinds of wacky stuff. And we tried everything we could to save the files and to retrieve the data, and it just didn't work. And thank you to everybody that had a hand in that. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the listeners for sticking around and sticking with us for the first 100 episodes and blowing this podcast up the way beyond any expectations. This was just a fun thing to do, especially when everything was wacky the last few years. So thank you to everybody that's listening, that is a past, present, and future listener, and especially to all the Patreon subscribers. You guys rule. Episode 100, we're going to re-record, so it's coming down the pipeline, so keep a lookout for that soon. But right now, listen to this interview we're about to do here with my man Phill, who's another paranormal investigator from the area. Going to be an interesting one, so keep it locked.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Yes, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Big Truth Podcast, episode 101. And I'm here with my man, Phill Anderson, who you may know off of Instagram and all the other social medias as Exploring with Phill, or on YouTube, which is pretty much your main focus, right? Is where your show is on.
Yep. Yeah. Weekly videos, 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Yep.
Canadian Dutch Boys
Studios.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'll have links to everything in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about it. And we'll talk about it more at the end. But Phil's a paranormal researcher and explorer, and into all things paranormal. You're not you don't focus on one thing.
Yeah, kind of open. But it's just because, I primarily focus Bridgewater Triangle. And so there's various amount of claims. So I kind of keep my mind open just because you never know what you might find or see.
Yeah. Well, if you're into the Bridgewater Triangle, you have to be into cryptids, to ghosts,
right? UFOs,
satanic cults. Pretty much, it's all there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or all reported of having been there at some point. So, but that's what I meant. It's not like genre, because some people are just like ghost.
Sure. You're right, because there's Bigfoot people. There's UFO. It's people that stick in very particular genres or whatever. No, but just paranormal. Yeah. So anything out of the ordinary, which kind of covers everything.
Yeah. And for you, it's more regional right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're it's not like you're focusing on one thing, but you're looking at all the paranormal activity within kind of like the New England region, at least for now. Right?
Yeah, for the most part. Once in a while I do, if I do travel out, like I just went to Pennsylvania, I went to Gettysburg, so that was cool. But primarily most of the time I'm in the Bridgewater Triangle, Hockomock Swamp, Freetown State Forest. Yeah, you mean almost I haven't gone to every single place in the Bridgewater Triangle, but I'm definitely knocking them off my list for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's big.
It's endless. And just when you think you're like, oh man, I'm going to run out of places, there's a new legend or story that I've never heard about. And then I go check that place out. So no, it's never ending. And it's been an awesome experience, and I'm excited to keep on going. So.
Hell yeah, man. And remind me, I'm looking over my shoulder. There's a chop ahead, art that my man Dan Tantillo drew, tattoo artist. You can't see it from here, but It's a Chopperhead Bridgewater Triangle piece. So
Oh, I love it.
It's got all the elements in it.
That's cool.
It's basically Bigfoot riding a chopper with
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Pukwudgie in the back, a Thunderbird flying overhead. They're going
That's
over
awesome.
like a upside down pentagram or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just getting all this stuff in.
Yeah.
You'll
love
dig
it.
it. I'll show it to you later.
Yeah, hell
I
yeah.
totally forgot about it. I can just see it out of my peripheral vision right now. As always, we're broadcasting live from the third motorcycle lift here at Chopperhead. Even though it is spring and it's wacky and crazy in here, we had a lift clear off today, so I set back up on the lift instead of a table. But Phill, what got you, before we even talk about your investigations and all the stuff you get into, give people who might not be familiar with you kind of like your background story, like what got you into this and how you got on this path.
Well, I would say obviously I was interested in the paranormal as a child.
Yeah.
I had various claims. I had various things that happened to me as a kid, different things over the years. But I would say as far as like really getting into investigating and doing what I do as far as the weekly YouTube stuff, it would probably be now 3 years ago in the town that I lived, they had a ghost hunt at the town hall. And I was like, I would love to do that. That's cool. I've always been interested in paranormal, ghosts, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, this is something I would definitely like to do and try. And so I went, I loved it. And then that's kind of how the kernel of the idea kind of started, or grew in me. And I was like, oh man, I could do this, every single week and because prior to that, I was interested in doing YouTube, but more like the exploring side, like as far as abandoned buildings, stuff like that. And not that I didn't think about doing the paranormal, but my main focus was that. And then like Randonautica was also very popular at the time. This is like now 2 years ago when I really started my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Randonautica or...
I've never played with it, but I've heard of it. It's basically you go in and it send you someplace kind of random.
Right.
So explain a little bit about
Sure.
that.
Because that's basically how my YouTube channel started, was doing Randonautica stuff. So Randonautica is an app that you download on your phone. And basically how it works is you set your own intention. So you open the app and there's different little things. You press the button and you're like, just for example, there's a fox right over there behind you.
Yeah.
We'll just say your intention's fox. So you hit the button, you're like, it says focus on your attention. You're like fox, 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 fox. It'll send you to a coordinate.
You gotta be careful when your intention is fox.
Yes.
You gotta be careful. You gotta specify FOX. You
Yes.
can't let Massachusetts accents get involved and screw things up, or it's gonna send you someplace really weird.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So theoretically, that's how it works. It'll send you to a spot, and allegedly you'll be a better chance to find that fox.
Yeah.
Is how the app works. So the app got famous because a group of teenagers set their intention, and it was death.
Yeah.
And so it sent them to a shoreline in Seattle where they live, and they found 2 suitcases on the shoreline. And so they smelled, they're like, oh, this is kind of weird. They get closer. Eventually they call the police because they're concerned. The police find 2 dead bodies inside of the briefcase.
Yeah.
And so that's how the app got famous, because here and these teenagers, they set the intention of death, and it takes them to death.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's
even if it's like 100% lottery random thing, it's going to get in the public
for
psyche.
sure.
That, all right, this
app's evil and all that kind of stuff. So I've listened to interviews with.
But is it? Because if your
Right.
focus was on death and it sent you to death, it's just doing its job.
It's just doing it right. And so the creator of the app, has gone on interviews and talked about the app, and it was basically like, hey, look, it uses quantum computers, and that's how it gets the locations. It'll send your intention allegedly and then to a quantum computer, and that's how it works. So he was saying all it really does, it gives you a 10% better chance at finding what you're looking for than random chance would. Meaning, like if you take a dart and you have a map and you just threw the darts and you checked all those spots, the Randonautica app will give you a 10% better chance than doing that.
Okay.
So that's basically how it works. And so I got started doing Randonautica videos to try to see if the app was evil, if there was really, really taking people to bad things. And so that's kind of how I got started. And so I was like, well, what other better place to go than Freetown State Forest, Huckamuck Swamp? And so that's kind of how I started. And then that transformed into like, I stopped doing Randonautica and I just kind of focused in on doing, regular paranormal investigations.
So what are some of the more interesting experiences or places that, before we get into current stuff, like with Randonautica sent you, was there anything that knocked it out of the pocket?
There was some weird. One of the weirdest things it sent me, I was in this little area, just like a very small like park. And I prefer parks and stuff like that when you play Randonautica, because sometimes if you You do a point, you drive all the way there, it's in someone's backyard.
Yeah, and you can't get in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, why don't I go to a place where no matter where the point is, I can get to the point?
So does it do it within a certain circumference?
Whatever radius you set, you can set different radiuses, and so it's not like a crazy big area. It'll
unless you choose it.
Unless you choose it to be. So I picked one of these places because I could access the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think my intention. It's been so long since I did it, but I think my intention was something strange, and I start walking in.
Now, do you physically type in?
Yeah.
something?
So it says just to like visualize your intention.
Oh, okay.
So I usually will like say it aloud.
Yep.
Be like something strange, as it's working. So that's just how I did it. So I get the point. I start walking. I do the intro of the video because it's like my first point. And on the way in, I see this woman kind of like standing in front of a tree, but facing the tree. Like, but awkwardly close to the tree.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it caught my eye. I'm like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
So it looked like she was just like texting maybe or something. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But as I get closer, she is not texting. She has her hands on the tree. And so I'm like, okay, that's not normal. That's kind of weird. I think that's kind of strange. You don't see that. You don't see that every day. Do you know what I mean? So I walk by a filmer a little bit just to show that what she was doing. So then I go to my point, and it takes me to this little area where there's like someone had built these like trees or whatever, but I was pretty sure that was my intention because that was something strange.
Yeah.
And so that same day, my next intention was something lost, right? On the way to the point, guess what I find? A pair of women's jeans sitting on like a rock or something. And at first you're like, oh yeah, big deal, women's jeans, no big deal. I think it's kind of weird that there's a pair of women, like what woman is taking off her pants and leaving her pants?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was weird.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So those are like two things that happened to me where it's just like, that's kind of strange.
Sure, yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was in the Freetown State Forest while I was playing Randonautica. It wasn't my exact point, but on the way to a point or coming back.
It's a good Freudian slip, right? Because of your intent and you're thinking about it, it's almost kind of like praying a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not really, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So I look down on the pathway as I'm walking the path, and there's like a Poland Spring bottle down there. And it kind of catches my eye because it looks like there's paper in it. And so I'm like, huh. And so I go down, I pick it up. There is paper in it. And so I open it, I get the paper out, I unroll it, and it says, please call. And it has a phone number in it, And so I was like, that's creepy. You know what I mean? Like it's Freetown State Forest too, because you're like,
yeah, it's already got a tainted kind of.
Yeah. And so it was weird. So I didn't call it, but I did text it, never got a response back. But I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if that person had just ill intent or if they just put one of their friends' phone numbers in there to scare their friend or something.
Or just some.
Right. But
Kids
it was
playing a prank on each other.
Right. Yeah, probably the case, but still weird.
Yeah.
Still really, especially where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Freetown State Forest.
we did something similar to our friend years ago. And when we were kids, like the local supermarket still like had a board on it where you could post like pre-internet, right? You could post want ads or like lists and stuff. We were kids, we put like free yard work, call Kevin. Left his number and stuff. His phone was blown. His parents, because this is when we were in high school, the kid still lived at home. He's like, why are all these people calling saying you're going to mow their lawn, blah, blah, blah. And he's like freaking out. It was like a big mystery in the house. They couldn't figure out what was going on.
Of course. Oh, man.
And then he looked, he's like, dude, I know you jerks, whatever. But yeah, just dumb stuff. But,
yeah, that's awesome.
So, but before we get too far in, like, if you don't mind, and if it's too personal or whatever, but like, what were some of the things that happened to you as a kid that even got you interested in paranormal stuff?
My first ever experience I ever had, I was only, I think, a four or five, and where we lived. This is in Wareham, where we lived, actually right near, like, where Tremont Nail is, or ever hear about Tremont Nail?
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like right near Tremont Nail, kind of the old part of Wareham, and so we lived in this apartment. My parents' bedroom's on the second floor, and it was like the only bedroom up there.
Yeah.
And so I think I was just playing or whatever, and I went upstairs and was playing up there or whatever. My mom's downstairs in the kitchen doing her thing. It's just me and my mom at this point. I have no other brothers and sisters. They're not around or whatever.
No one else is in the house.
No, just us. And I'm up there, and all of a sudden I hear like glass break, like in the room I'm in.
Yeah.
And I don't see no glass.
How old are you?
Like 4 or 5.
Okay.
I hear the glass break, and then I hear people talking, like in the room I'm in.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard to remember exactly what they said because I was 4 or 5 years old, but I felt it was someone talking like right in the room, but there's no one there.
Yeah.
So I get scared, of course. I've seen Ghostbusters at this point in my life.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So I run downstairs. I tell my mom like, "Hey, I heard glass break up there, and there's people talking, blah blah blah." She goes up there and doesn't see anything, doesn't find anything. And it stuck with me for a long time because that was like my first kind of experience.
Sure.
And then, I had a couple experiences after that and stuff like that, but that was like my first, where I was like, okay, there's something going on here. Then, maybe Ghostbusters is real.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So before you thought about doing investigations, like you had a couple of things happen to you, but did that lead to like, did you read about that stuff? Did you read about paranormal stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing that helped too is going, the library in school.
Yeah.
I remember because my dad was a military guy, and so and I loved G.I. Joe growing up, and so I was always wanted to emulate my dad. So I was always like very much into like military things and like history and stuff like that. And so I'd get these like little military books, and so there'd be about like Civil War, all these different World War II, all these different things, just kind of like with a lot of pictures and stuff because they're for children. Yeah. And so I get to the last book in the series, and guess what it is? It's Ghosts of Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, and so that was like the first thing shortly after it, because this is like maybe 2 years after that experience.
Okay.
So then I'm like, oh wow, like this is like really is a thing. Like there's like a book about it. You know what I mean? Because you got to remember, in the 80s and stuff and 90s, like there wasn't a lot of ghost stuff out there that was like, except even like Bigfoot stuff, UFOs. A lot of that stuff was very fringe back in those days.
It was fringe, or it was like fun, campy,
right?
But it wasn't serious,
right? It was not taken seriously at all. Like if people said they saw a ghost or something, be like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Most people, and that's how it was back then. So here I am seeing this book, and it like validated to me that like, oh yeah, no, this is a real thing because here's a real book that's saying that these ghosts are, Ghosts of Gettysburg, and these ghosts are real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah. And I remember when I was a kid, same thing, not same thing, but it was like. I just remember there would be like, remember there was a Time Life?
Yes.
Like encyclopedia of like the paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was another one called Man, Myth, and Magic. And I recently, a couple of years ago, I bought the whole set again.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got some over there. I'll show you. And these were crazy because it's pre-internet. So it's like how you found out about a lot of weird things. And it was I just feel it's funny because like, it's just interesting to hear how people are drawn to it because like, I don't know how it was. We were all kids, like it was just like, oh, that's got into weird stuff, like just always, and even later, like as in middle school and stuff, I got into like other weird stuff, like punk rock and skate, things that were outside of the mainstream. But even but I think that's all from as a kid getting into like weird paranormal and not the regular stuff. Right,
and just kind of drawn to that like alternative, different.
Yeah, and I don't know why. And it was like funny. There's a funny memory came back. I just remember there was a documentary, but it was released in theaters about the Bermuda Triangle. Oh, wow. And this is like this is probably 70s or early 80s. Yep. I'm going to look it up. And I remember pestering my father to bring him like, no, we got to go. Come on. I want to see it. And I was still in elementary school. And I remember we got home and I was scared shit. Like, and I was like, Dad, you got to leave the light on. I'm not like, I made him leave the light on and the whole thing, cause it was like, I was 8 years old or something. Like, leave the light on. I don't want to, because it was like.
I was the same way as a kid too. You know what I mean?
You want to know all this stuff, and then when you're alone dealing with it, you're like, nah, what did I do?
You want to know, then it gets close to you, then you don't want to know.
Yeah. But then you go back. When I look all right, I'm down.
Whatever. So, for sure.
So 3 years ago, you're doing the stuff with the Randonautica and stuff, and then it kind of hit you to start. Yeah,
then it basically just kind of, I don't want to say transformed overnight, but slowly I just kind of got away from Randonautica and just kind of started doing like paranormal, I would say paranormal investigation / exploring too as well.
Well, that's
same
the
thing.
Exploring.
Yeah, right.
So did you do things like regular, like you said, you doing like exploring like abandoned places and stuff?
Yes.
And then you added the paranormal too.
Yeah, and well, the paranormal found me.
Yeah.
Because like, So I can tell you that story if you want.
Discuss that, yeah.
So during Christmas, I love abandoned buildings. Like that was another one of my huge interests. I don't know why I'm drawn to them. I love history. So I love time capsules and, going to one of the coolest things I've ever found in an abandoned house is this old Bible from the 1700s. And it has their whole family history in it. Like,
and then it's like, why is that left? Like, why did not one kid take it?
Right, you know what I mean? Here's like literal history that should be like sound like Indiana Jones. Should be in a museum, and it's sitting in this abandoned house, just rotting. Eventually, going to be torn down. No one's going to see it. No one's going to, So like that's what had drawn me into that. So fast forward to my story, Christmas time. I wanted to take a break from the paranormal because number one, it just takes a lot out of you editing wise. Because it's not like a normal video where like you just simple cuts. You got to go through EVPs and all that stuff. So there's a lot more that goes into it, a lot more editing. Not only that, it physically takes a lot out of you. Like if you go constantly, for whatever reason, it does drain your energy. You know what I mean? More so than some other things. It's weird. I've heard people say that before. And at first I was like, oh, that's nothing. But then, it does add up, So I was like, all right, I want to take a break. So I reached out to my fan base and one of my fans was like, hey, I know a place that's kind of like near your area. It's an abandoned house, completely empty. I was like, cool, awesome. Great, I'll just do an abandoned video, just explore. This is cool. So I go, I do it. Don't really get like 2 minutes, not really anything creepy happening, no noises, no nothing during the time I'm there. I get home, I'm editing footage, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, come on. And so I listen, and so it's, I get this EVP of a man. The first one I found was a man, and he says, literally, this is all he says, something good. Yeah. And just like that.
And it's just on the tape.
Right. And so
you didn't ask questions.
No, I wasn't asking any questions. I was just didn't acknowledge if anybody was there. Just doing my own thing. Didn't ask. Nothing. No EVP sessions. Nothing. Just explored. That's it. And so I catch that. And so then I'm going through the footage more. Get down in the basement, and there's this like workbench, kind of like old wooden workbench, down there in the basement. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, that's a cool little old workbench. And I get this graggly, deep voice that says, I see you. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh no. So I'm like,
that's one of those things you're happy you didn't hear it.
Oh, 100%. It would have freaked me out for sure. But then I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I didn't want to do a paranormal video, and here the paranormal's like finding me. And like in my videos. And so that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't even have the intention of going there and doing that. And
do you think that's because you're someone that's like open to it?
Maybe. Dude, I've been thinking about that lately.
What do you think about like how many people film stuff all the time now? Are there just EVPs that people aren't even perceiving or thinking about?
Right. That could be definitely a possibility, especially if it's like a haunted place anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because something similar just happened to me recently. We were down in Tennessee. The video just came out last night. Elkmont, just like an abandoned, like, there was like a resort place. And then when the National Forest bought it out, they're like, you guys got to leave within X amount of years. So now it's just like abandoned, and they fixed the cabins up, remodeled them, which is another reason why it could be haunted, because they say that remodeling can like kick up ghosts and stuff like that.
Sure.
So we did a whole explore during the day, and we had like the word bank going on the thing. So we got a couple word banks here or there. We only did one spirit box because it said haunted and it was responding to things we said. But other than that, we just walked around, didn't ask any questions, and we caught like 10 EVPs of them. Most of them were responsive to what we were saying, or all of them were what we were saying. One of them even mocked my fiance. Like she's talking about our cats to one of the buddies that we were filming with, like, oh, here's our cats, they're crazy. And it's literally when she says that's crazy, another voice says that same thing. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But what's weird about it is like,
but it said it in a taunting kind of voice,
and how close they are together. It's almost as if they knew she was going to say that.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like she says it and then it's like right behind her, like real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just weird.
Yeah.
Weird. It's like I'm saying, like paranormal, like it's weird.
When you were exploring regular abandoned places, like what's some of the craziest stuff that you come across besides like that Bible and stuff?
Yeah, like found.
Or what are some of the craziest places? Like, and if you don't want to say the location.
Oh yeah, no. The coolest place I've ever checked out is the Neville Grand Resort in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely incredible. Just like it was built like in the, I think the 40s, 50s, but it was that time period where it was like this Jewish part of like New York where all the Jewish people go to vacation. And it was like close enough to New York City, so that way it wasn't like too far away.
Yeah.
And but it was in the mountains of New York and stuff like that.
So kind of upstate.
Yeah, upstate. This like
Catskills.
Yep, Catskills area, like that whole because I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but like that whole area is like all old resorts and stuff. A lot of abandoned resorts and stuff like that. Just because the Poconos is the same kind of thing. Just because during that time period, that area was like really popular because it was so close by and inexpensive, and not only that, it was like a resort where like they had everything.
Yeah,
they had a club where you have comedians and real musicians come and show up. You know what I mean? So it was like one of those places, like kind of like an all-inclusive resort down in some tropical place. Just kind of like that. You don't have to leave. They have everything there for you. That kind of place.
Yeah.
So just a sprawling, awesome place. When I visited, it was like last summer. And it was like very much destroyed and stuff like that, but it was still cool because they had a lot of older stuff in there from that time period. So, and the vastness of this place is just huge.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the my favorite place I've checked out as far as like a big place that's like kind of famous.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as far as like other homes I've checked out that have found stuff cool in, I found an old like typewriter that's probably from like the 60s or 70s. It's funny because my aunt looked it up in the video and she's like, "Did you know that typewriters worth $17,000?" And I was like, "Wow!" I was like, "Wow!"
Yeah. Well, this video's out, so that typewriter's definitely gone. Someone got that typewriter's on eBay right now.
Yeah. Like. It's like stuff like that, just like old stuff.
But that brings up a question: when you're exploring these places, like, and you see that typewriter or you see that Bible, do you leave it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the general rule of thumb of urban exploring is leave no footprints, take nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
like
most people are
pretty respectful. The only people that aren't are usually like teenagers or something.
Yeah, and they don't.
And that's typical. They usually just destroy.
Yeah,
they don't really steal necessarily.
Yeah.
They'll just go into a place and just ransack it, flip things over, like just destroy, to destroy.
Spray paint,
yeah, that kind of stuff. I will say I did find a bunch of VHS tapes in a home, like, you name it, they had it there.
Yeah.
Like just classic, like Home Alone.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is also the start to a horror movie called VHS. I don't know if you've ever seen that
really?
movie. Yeah. It's like, it's a found footage horror movie.
Yeah.
Where the police or something like bust into this guy's house, and there's this collection of VHS tapes, and that's the movie. So they stop putting them in, and it's all these weird horror stories.
Right.
It's pretty cool concept.
Yeah.
Some of them are good, some of them
are not. Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't know if you meant they were like, but they were, it's like regular.
Yeah, just regular old, just like a person that really loved movies and music. They had like a ton of records and all this kind of stuff.
See, that's so crazy to me. Like,
it's just left.
How does it happen where it just
just
gets up and leaves? So.
Yeah, and to make it even more interesting is,
sadly, it's probably someone passed away.
Yeah,
and then
no one ever. That's usually what happens, and it usually goes to a family member that doesn't care.
It doesn't live anywhere local.
That can
on
happen
the other side
too.
Of the country, that place is just rotting on the other side of the
country. And then it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, well, we can't. Right, and then it's weird. It's crazy. I don't understand it either because we're talking about people's whole lives in some of these homes.
Crazy,
It's super sad. You just like, for example, okay, I got a little cool thing to tell you. I've never put this on footage because I just didn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
So we were in one of the homes that I've checked out, and we went back and we found a tape. And so I was like, I wonder what's on this tape. And I have a tape thing in my bag. A cassette tape. And so I was like, I wonder what's on this tape. Because it's like the recorded tape, like a home one. Yeah. It's not like, Janet Jackson or something. It's a one that you record on. So I put it in a thing, I hit play. And it's the woman that used to live there. And it's like instructions on how to reheat the food for the husband who's getting home late at night or something like that from his job or whatever. And she's in bed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it made me sad.
That's like a ghost.
That's who's there. You know what I mean? Like, You know what I mean? Like here's like, you know, a random tape from their old life that's just sitting in there.
Yeah.
And Lord knows, maybe these people have families that they would love to hear their voice again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's just literally sitting there rotting away.
That's what sucks about it, right?
Yeah, and that's the sad part about it, you know?
Yeah.
For
See,
sure.
I would have been tempted to take that Bible to give it to
dude,
'cause
me
it's
too.
Anything from the
Me too.
17 like
Me too.
revolutionary era, like
It belongs in the museum.
it doesn't. You don't want it to rot.
I know.
Away. That one's a conundrum.
That one I would have no problem if as someone did do that and for that purpose. To actually,
Yeah,
you know
not
what I
to-
mean?
Not to keep it. For
I don't.
yourself,
Yeah,
but
because you're right. Because it is going to get lost forever.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah, it's
So,
history.
Yeah, dude.
The only one we did, which is very on topic with this, when we were kids, me and some of my friends, we now, well, actually, so let me ask you this: a lot of these places, like, can you just go to, or is it kind of is there's a little gray line here?
Oh,
right?
it's 100% a lot of. It's a lot of gray lines.
Yeah, a lot of sneaking and stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because like when we went to years ago, this is when I don't know how old we were, probably like 16, like old enough for one of us to have a license, but not
Sure.
for all of us. So 15, 16, we went into one of the old abandoned mansions in Newport.
Oh, that's so cool.
But the one Allison Crowley used to stay at for a while.
No kidding.
And I'll tell you what, man, like what an experience like of like weirdness. Like, so we're in the basement. We enter through the basement, right?
It was open.
It was open, you know, it was one of the windows was open. So imagine a room, it's a big square.
Yeah.
Now within that square, there's another square. So to get around the basement, you walked around the whole thing.
Right.
It was like 4 hallways around this other
Weird.
small square. Now, in the small square, the smaller square, there's a door and the door is probably 8 or 9 inches thick, steel.
Jeez.
You know, like the what do you call it? The hinges.
Yeah.
The hinges are like
Good God. It's like a vault.
two inches thick. You
Yeah.
know, steel. You know, round stock.
That's bigger than a bank vault.
Yeah, and you're like, all right, was Allison Crowley used to stay here. What's this door going to? And it's not open. Like, and there's no way you can see where people like try to blast through it and stuff.
Sure.
And it ain't open. And you're like,
Jeez.
that was the only. We were like, what is it behind that?
Right,
And then you-
seriously.
And then you go upstairs and all like, there's all the usual satanic graffiti and all the stuff like you're talking about,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
kids destroying shit.
Yep.
Throwing,
Yep.
you know, everything's destroyed. But I'm sure that house now has been renovated and is back to like this.
Yeah. That's such a
multi-million
shame about like abandoned places because like sometimes if you don't go right away, they're gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
You know, especially nowadays with the housing market the way that it is.
Oh, sure.
Like
Yeah,
houses,
there's very
people building on any stretch of land here
Yeah.
now. It's crazy.
the only abandoned places to go to right now are malls.
Yeah, I know, and I missed my opportunity to check out the other one there that they tore down.
Yeah, the
Silver City. Yeah,
Yeah. I know. I wanted to get in there, man. Just it'd be cool just to
know.
walk around. Just
I dropped the ball on that one. I just forgot that they were closing, and then before I knew it, they were like, "Oh yeah, they blew it up today." I'm like, "Oh,
yeah. I saw
Damn it.
someone posted a video of them walking through a mall.
yeah." Exploring with Josh, probably he did the
Probably.
Silver City Galleria,
Oh no.
or is it another mall?
It's another one. I think it was like in California or something.
Oh, okay.
But it was like had been closed for substantial, at
long
least like
time.
10 years. It started to like deteriorate and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
But
sure.
And the stores were like very aged, like the signs that were there.
Yeah.
It wasn't all like chain stores like how everything is now.
Right,
It was still
right.
when it was like individual
Sure.
individual owned independent
Yeah.
stores and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of weird, 80s, 90s looking things.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah,
Pretty
that's
cool.
cool.
Like,
Oh,
as a
dude,
time vault.
I love that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
I said, the history time vault stuff.
Yeah.
Especially 80s, 90s. That's like my wheelhouse, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. 'cause
It's just
it's-
nostalgic.
That's it's gonna
You know?
be the nostalgia for you. I'm a little older, so it was like my childhood was 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And young, 90s I was still a kid, but
Right.
teenager, like
Yeah,
but
sure.
So same thing, man. So we got a little bit of, we can kind of see how things progressed here, right?
Oh, for sure.
But how did you kind of stop focusing on doing paranormal stuff in, this area, and like what like drew you to like the Bridgewater Triangle stuff? And so tell a little bit about the stuff that you.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, I think just like probably a lot of people around here, I'm almost to say it's like a sense of pride in a way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Especially since that documentary came out. The documentary was huge. The Bridgewater Triangle documentary, huge.
Because it brought this little local urban
to a national audience, you know, and made me more interested in it as well. You know, because before that documentary came out, you'd hear like certain things. And I'm trying to even think if I've heard the Bridgewater Triangle before that. I'm sure I did, but it wasn't what it is now.
No, that movie really
made it
kind of defined it.
Oh,
more,
for sure.
You know?
And put like a focus on like what are the actual claims and what are the spots and all that stuff. Because I've used that documentary as like when I first started, I was like baseline to find these different spots and like, okay, you know, when I first went to the Hockomock Swamp, I rewatched it and watched all the Hockomock Swamp stuff. So that way I'd know all the claims and know, and you know,
kind of
that, right.
Little what you're potentially getting.
Exactly. You know, just so, you know, and so that's kind of like how I guess I started doing that. And then, you know, obviously as soon as you go out there and start having like experiences there, then, you know, you start being like, okay, well, this place is like this. I wonder what Profile Rock's like. I wonder what this place is like. And then it kind of snowballs from there.
Sure.
But I would say the number one place I've been is a Hockomock Swamp for sure.
Yeah.
Hockomock Swamp's probably like, I go there once a month, a month and a half or so. And I've caught some wild things in the Hockomock Swamp.
Yeah. So before we get into like stuff that you found, because obviously like stuff that you catch on tape or through you know your other means of analysis and data collection, it's one thing. But personally, like what's some of the stranger things that might have like that you experienced like in that time, like in person, like you know what I mean? Not
sure, like actually physically.
Yeah.
The last time I went to the Hockomock, I heard voices.
Yeah.
And then caught the EVPs on camera. So that's, I think, the first time.
And it was the same thing you heard in
yeah. Well, like in the moment, it was hard to understand what it was, but I know I heard something.
Yeah.
And then to catch it on camera to be like, yeah, you did hear something.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of weird. I also heard something at the Witching Tree. I heard a voice there as well. Yeah. So that, you know, like I said, when you hear the voice or something like that, that's...
Does your hair stand up?
Oh, for sure. Because then you're like, okay, like this place is like, I'm getting stuff right now. And it's letting me know it's here, you know, really loud, you know, cause it's being really vocal and stuff. That, and the Witching Tree's really strange. A buddy of mine,
tell people like a little background.
About the Witching Tree. Yeah, sure.
This goes out to
absolutely. So the Witching Tree is one of those urban legend kind of things where there's not a lot of information about it. I didn't even know it existed until my fiance's, one of her friends that works in that town that it's in, mentioned it to her. Yeah. And then she tried to find stuff on it, and like one little article about it. And so the only thing that we could find is allegedly people were lynched there, capital punishment took place there, witches were hung there, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And not only that, there's like
what time frame?
I would say just based on the graves, 1700s, 1800s at the latest.
So, is it in a graveyard or near a graveyard?
Yeah. So underneath, it's a tree, Witching Tree, and then underneath the tree, there's all these graves.
Oh, okay.
Underneath the tree, and some of the graves are like literally grown into the tree. It's really weird. There's one headstone that's literally into the tree, and I'm it's very strange. So that's kind of like the urban legend, and allegedly there's a lot more bodies than.
Then are marked,
correct, right, and so that's us all.
Yeah, because why would you give a witch and a
proper burial? Right. So that's kind of like the legend behind it.
And before anyone freaks out, I'm not talking about us saying that now. I'm saying back then, and you know, when they're doing that.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah, they would definitely do that for sure. And so that's kind of like the legend behind it. So honestly, it was one of those places where I wasn't expecting much.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, all right, well, this is kind of hearsay. It's not even like 100% proven that this happened.
And you haven't heard too much about it.
It's not like Hockomock Swamp. It's not, you know, it's not like the typical things people talk about. At all. And so I was like, okay, that's weird. So like I said, I go there. I hear the voice right there in front of me, and then I go back on the tape, and we get not only that voice, I catch that voice, but we get a woman like humming or like singing, like, like whatever, singing something. And then she like speaks to me or says something to me. I didn't hear that with my own ears, just EVP afterwards. And I don't know. I still can't quite make out what it is. You could hear it clearly, but I almost think it's like Native American or Wampanoag or something. Okay. Just because I can't make out any words that she's saying, but she's talking to me and she's saying things. Yeah. And so we caught that there.
What did the voice that you actually heard, what did that say?
It was kind of like, it wasn't even like a word. It was more like a,
vocal gesture.
Yes. Yeah. Like, or like, I don't know, like something like that.
Just like, you're here. Leave us alone.
And so like I said, I was going to say about the paranormal guy. He went there after I went there because I had so much stuff there. Yeah. He literally heard, I got an EVP or was it EVP or spirit box? Now I don't remember, but he definitely it told him to fuck off. So I'm like, okay, that's probably that same voice that was grunting at me and not pleased that I was there.
Leave us alone.
Yeah. And I also had something really interesting happen there that's never happened to me anywhere else. The week before that, I was in the Hockomock and I got like unprovoked. I got prayer, please pray for me, like all in a row.
Okay.
Which is like
on what this?
On the spirit box. Okay. Like, in a row. So I was like, that's kind of weird. And so with that in my head, I was like, I'll ask. Is anyone out here wanting me to pray for them? And so I do the spirit box, scan it through. And then there's like a woman that says like, yeah, sure. Then there's another guy that's like, okay, cool. Or like, okay. And then there's a woman that comes out of nowhere and basically interrupts them all. And it's like, what are you doing? He's the enemy.
Wow.
And so I hear that and I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Does she mean, I hope she means she's a Native American Wampanoag and that's why I'm the enemy? Because I'm like a white person, Englishman or whatever.
Yeah.
And
you're a pilgrim in there.
Pilgrim, right. Yeah. But then on the other side of that, I was like, oh no.
Unless it's a dark forest.
So I didn't want to like think about that too much, but so that's what I'm saying. A place that I didn't expect to be haunted. And this is in the Bridgewater Triangle as well. Yeah. Not a lot of history behind it. And you go there and it's just like, there's some wild stuff happening there.
Well, you guys heard it. Phil busted out the new spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Broke the new Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah,
spot.
for sure. It's I highly recommend it. And
but that just goes to show there's still plenty. Like what don't we know? It's
that's
like the ocean,
saying.
Right? Like
right.
How much do we really know?
Right.
How
many other undiscovered hotspots are there in the Bridgewater Triangle? No one has ever thought about investigating before, Yeah.
I want to talk because you brought up some pieces of equipment. I want to talk about equipment in a second, but I got a question. Has there ever been an investigation you've been on? And I know you say sometimes you do it, a lot of times you do it alone. Sometimes you're there with a couple other people. Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you've been somewhere and it's just something happens or whatever, and it's like, all right, pack it up, gotta get the hell out of here?
Once.
One
time.
What was that?
So that was in the Hockomock Swamp. I was investigating a new area in the Hockomock Swamp I've never investigated before. Yeah. It was a buddy of mine I used to work with. He lives in that area and was like, hey, I know another spot where you can access the swamp. And it's super creepy back there. That's what he had said to me. So I was like, awesome. Yeah, this is great.
Gold, right?
100%.
You know how to get there. It's super creepy.
Yep.
You got to weigh in.
Yep.
You got the local person that's like, here's the spot.
Right. And so I'm like, perfect.
Off the beaten path.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is great. A new spot in the Hockomock. I can see if the claims or if I'm getting certain claims that are happening in the other part of the swamp. Yeah. Compare and contrast, all that kind of stuff. So I get there and it's just basically a one trail that kind of leads into the woods. And so I'm kind of going down that trail, doing my video, probably not even like a half a mile from my car where I parked the car. Yeah. And I get this feeling I've never gotten before. And literally in my head, I hear, you shouldn't be here. Yeah. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe, because honestly, the first time I went to the Hockomock, not this spot, but the other spots I've been, I was creeped out the first time. Sure. So I'm like, maybe it's just me being creeped out like I was before. I ignore it. Keep on going. Happens again. And so I'm like, I at least got to mention this on camera that I'm feeling creeped out just in case something happens. So I mention it, keep on going. And then I get to a point where I'm like, I look over to my left and I see nothing but like down trees as far as the eye could see. And I'm talking like a football field length of just down trees. Yeah. It looks like a tornado ripped through there. Yeah. And I know because I've, at the time, it's winter. There's no tornadoes that's ripped through there.
And it's in the middle of the woods. It's not at the edge.
No, it's in the middle of the woods.
It's a protected area.
Right.
No one's logging it.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's completely protected.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's kind of weird. You know, it just looks weird. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of stopped.
There's
and
a
I'm
lot
like,
of that in the Freetown forest too. You just see
really?
a lot of down.
Yeah.
Like in one area, you'll see a bunch of
yeah,
down
that's
trees
like,
and stuff.
I don't know if that's
Not to that
paranormal or
extent,
not.
not
but-
to that extent.
Yeah. But it's interesting though. You know, I'd be interested to see if there's, you know, stuff going on there like there
Yeah.
was at this spot. So I'm like, all right, well, let me do a spirit box session. So I shut off my camera, which I never do anymore because I always leave it on because of this experience. So I shut it off. I get the spirit box out. I get it ready. I turn it on the spirit box. I'm about to hit like start on the whatchamacallit. And I kind of like, I don't really know if I get this feeling or whatever. I just kind of looked up and I looked over in front of me about 40, 45 feet away over the back. You know when sometimes trees fall over? They have like the back circle around the tree when they get uprooted.
The root
So
structure,
sometimes, sometimes the roots kind of come with it.
Yeah, and then the dirt cluster around
Correct.
it. Yeah,
That's exactly what it looks like. So over the back of one of these comes jumping over this, what looks like a black, fluffy wolf creature.
Yeah.
All fours, did not stand up on all like two legs, just looked like a wolf.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen coyotes before. I know how big coyotes are. I know how big they can get. This was bigger than any other coyote I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that kind of fear over me in a quick instant like that. And so I just literally just grabbed my stuff and I left.
Yeah.
I didn't turn around.
Did you turn your back on the
of course I did, like an idiot, because I didn't know at the time that not to do that, but and now I know. But yeah, so I just bailed and got out of there. And but yeah, dude.
But just devil's advocate, have you ever seen a coy wolf?
No, I have not seen a coy wolf.
So
and someone mentioned that it could be a coy wolf.
It's like it looks like literally what a coyote and a wolf mixed, but it looks like a skinny wolf but tall.
Oh,
tall,
okay.
skinny legs.
Gotcha.
Because I've seen a coy wolf on the edge of the road in Freetown.
Oh, no kidding.
Crazy,
Okay.
yeah.
So because it did seem, like I said, taller than a normal, than a coyote for sure. Bigger.
But
fluffy.
For it to be all black.
It was all black.
That's weird, right?
For sure.
'Cause around here, they're usually
right.
multicolored, brown, fawn colors.
That's what I've ever seen as far as coyotes and stuff. Dude, so it was weird, but that's a Bridgewater Triangle. That's one of the claims. Yeah. Unusual animals of different sizes, so that's what I chalk it up as. Like, I don't think it's a dog man. I mean,
I was going to say, what's up with your boy Merkel? Is it a dog man?
Yeah, he it might be. You never know. It could be. It very well could be. I can't prove that.
Sure.
But all I know is what I saw, and that thing, I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
did it appear? Did you lock eyes? Or did it know you were there?
I don't know. Yeah. When it jumped down and jumped over, I looked at it and then I didn't want to look at it anymore.
Okay. So you just bounced. Yeah.
Yeah. And we never made eye contact, or it never looked up at me. It was kind of like, I think it didn't know I was there.
Yeah.
Cause I think it would have seen me, it would have made eye contact with me if it knew I was there. I don't think it did.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you didn't give it enough time. Yeah.
No.
That's probably smart. Mm-hmm. Now, do you bring any protective things with you? And
at the time I had nothing on me.
Yeah.
In the future, yes, I do have a gun and I will bring it with me and stuff like that.
Or at least some good bear mace or something. Yeah.
Right. Something, just because of that experience alone.
You need a crucifix, holy water, a bear mace, a gun, silver bullets. Do the whole thing, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
yeah, just curious because sometimes you can be someplace and you can creep yourself out.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
Or you see something like that and you just whatever, like you process it in an instant. And all right. Fight or flight.
Right. That's exactly what happened. I've never experienced that before.
Yeah.
Where like it was literally, it was just like I got to get out of here. I was, it's
nope.
weird. Yeah, it's a weird experience.
Have you gone back to that?
I went back like a week later with backup. We did not see the wolf again, but I will say, in the area where that wolf, coy wolf, dogman, whatever it is,
the wolf-like creature.
Yep, we got unbelievable EMFs over there.
Yeah.
I'm talking electromagnetic fields for those people who don't know what that is, which is very unexplainable because there's no power lines out there.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about natural EMFs somehow that are like in the ground or being caused by something there. I don't know what, but I think that's kind of interesting.
But yeah, let's talk about equipment for a second.
Sure.
But before we get that, because I forget, because like, so we're both here. We're in Freetown. We're in the
I know.
we're in the lower right hand.
I'm just waiting for someone to knock on the back window.
Puckwaji.
Yeah.
We're just in the lower right hand side of the triangle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're 5 minutes from the forest, which is where I used to go when the gyms were closed during the lockdowns.
Yeah, sure.
And saw plenty of weird human stuff, like nothing supernatural.
Yeah.
It was daytime, but I know it doesn't always have to be, like, you see plenty during the day.
Sure.
But for people that don't know, so Freetown, Massachusetts, Hockomock Swamp, can you give people a little bit of background? Because we know what it is.
Sure,
But I just realized we're talking about this.
I know, and not like defining like what these places.
One of the listeners in like Des Moines, Iowa might be,
They have
what the
no
hell are these
idea.
guys
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah.
So a lot of people think, we'll start with the Hockomock. A lot of people think the Hockomock Swamp is like the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle. It was a place where the Wampanoags, Native Americans in this area, would use it to escape battles. They'd use it to bury their dead. It was literally the literal translation of Hockomock means place where spirits dwell.
Oh, yep.
And it's a huge, vast area in New England as far as swamps go. It's it's the biggest swamp in Massachusetts. So
isn't there what is it, like, is it 14?
14, I have it written down.
14,000?
I think it's 14,000 square feet. Oh, 200 square miles.
Yeah.
Of
That's crazy.
swamp.
Oh, and no. Freetown,
I'm sorry, that's the Bridgewater Triangle.
Freetown Forest is 14,000
14,000
acres.
Yeah. And then Hockomock, I have it written down somewhere in here. 17,000 acres is a Hockomock.
So it's even bigger than the forest.
Yeah, it's huge. It's massive. And most of it is unreachable. You know, there's a rail trail, that old rail trail that goes through the middle of it, kind of near the dog track.
Yep.
Behind the dog track. That's one of the access points there.
That's the main one.
Main one, a lot of people go. And then there's the Bay Circuit Trail, which goes where the power lines are and stuff.
Yep.
And you know, that's pretty much, and then there's one other road that's you can kind of access, minus the area that I was talking about the wolf at.
Yeah.
Yes.
You ever go off trail when you?
Yes. So one time when I was
a little careful. Right?
Oh my God. Yeah, you do. So it was winter and the swamp froze over. And so
you could get around.
I went, I did. I was too afraid to go more than like 50 feet in because I didn't want to get lost.
Yeah,
and God forbid if my phone stops working, I wouldn't know how to get.
There's no service out there. In a lot of time anyway.
It's like,
once you get in the forest,
it could drop off. Yeah, for sure. You know, so like I went about 45, 50 feet in, and it was near like I said, the rail trail. So if you go towards if you're behind the dog track and you go to the right and keep on going, it'll eventually bring you to like a T intersection area. And near that T intersection there on the map anyway, I don't know if it actually is an island, but there's allegedly an island out there. And it's called South Island. So I was curious.
I think that's the place I was telling you about where Joe said that the cop told him don't go over to that. Because there's something about an island. Look, yeah.
South Island? Okay.
I don't know if that's it.
That's
sure.
it?
I'll get confirmation. I'll let you know.
Interesting. Yeah, because I just saw it in the map and I'm like, it's not that far. I could probably get there if the ice is frozen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I went about halfway and I just couldn't do it, man. Especially by myself, you know. I almost wanted to like have a piece of rope and tie it to a tree and then go out there so I could follow the rope back. You know what I mean? Only to have a puckwudgie move it into another tree.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Then all of a sudden you feel that rope go limp and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So
that's Hockomock. That, should I tell people like the claims of Hockomock Swamp?
Yeah, why don't we go through some of that?
Sure.
And then we can talk about it in general Bridgewater Triangle outside of this one. Because it's a rich area for this type of activity. Because like we said, there's UFO, alien stuff, there's cryptid stuff, all kinds of cryptid stuff.
For sure.
And then there's spiritual stuff, and then like the whole satanic panic, like cult stuff, and all kinds of weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty much throughout all of
I'm talking the Bridgewater
Triangle,
specifically,
for sure.
But yeah, and I just wanted to bring out the history about like the Native American.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because it has a history to that.
Yeah, and so because there's some people believe that it might be cursed as well.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like the King Philip's War stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a firm believer that they cursed the land. I mean, I could see. Like when they talked about the Freetown State Forest, they said that evil dwelt there, which I think is kind of interesting because they were here for thousands of years, and so even when they were here before English people showed up, there was evil here.
And honestly,
you know,
and just to be devil's advocate, it's like Why would you want to curse the swamp? Who cares? No one's going there.
No one's going in there anyway.
Ooh, you scare you.
Yeah, right.
You curse
and it's
the
a
area
sacred
that
place to them.
Yeah,
so it's
I
like,
get
why
it.
would you curse a sacred place to you? You probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
so I think it's just some things that people say because of the history. It's like, oh, they lost.
Or to try to explain the whole
Right.
why all the weird stuff happens there.
Right. And so like, I'm not a huge believer in the curse thing. I've asked many times if, you know, and I've never got any responses that said, yeah, but this is cursed or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
So,
but it also could have been a ploy back in the day to keep people out of there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's cursed. You don't want to go back there. So they know they could go hide back there and people weren't, you know. For sure. People wouldn't follow them in.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting about the Huckamuck, I think is interesting, is I'd never made this, I just never connected this in my head. So I heard this podcast and they were talking about this other swamp in Louisiana. And wouldn't you know, they were talking about the claims. Every single claim was the same thing in the Huckamuck swamp.
Huh.
And I'm like, here's two different swamps, thousands of miles, two different ecosystems.
Yeah, two different geographical regions.
Right, and it's like the same claims.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of weird.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, okay, so maybe there's some sort of connection between swamps.
Yeah.
And just generally maybe there are areas where, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of activity for this kind of stuff.
Sure. And, and even if you took like the spiritual paranormal stuff out of it, what better place for weird life to exist?
Sure.
Or unexplained.
Or to hide.
Or hide. Because, you know, there's not a lot of people out there. There's not a lot of people venturing around. It's hard terrain to traverse. Like there's no reason to go out there. It's not like you're going to go like fishing out there. Well, some places obviously, but like you're not going to, you know, swamps are like, it's kind of a gross place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Hardly anyone's out there.
Smell, it's like everything's like decaying. And, you know, it's like just not like.
Oh, and in midsummer, you ever been to swamp midsummer? There's insects everywhere.
It sucks.
Yeah, it's awful. It's not a place you want to go unless you're like into wildlife. You know?
Sure, exactly. Yeah, and which would make sense, like why regular wildlife's there, and then why maybe the cryptid stuff or whatever. You know, that stuff.
Yeah, because it's a huge area. You know, so it's definitely interesting.
Do you know the name of the swamp in Louisiana?
I don't
It'd be interesting to follow up on that
for sure,
and look and see if anyone's made connections about that stuff.
Yeah, I never made the connection until I heard them talk about the claims and stuff and all that, and I was like, that's really weird. You know what I mean? I thought it was strange for sure.
So there's a TV show idea right there, like Swamp Investigation.
Yeah.
Go look at everything. Because I'm sure if it's Louisiana and Mass, I'm sure there's plenty other places where around the country. Where
now I want to check out like all the swamps. It's like, is it all it's very similar to, you know, it makes you wonder.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, then of course, if you want to get into like the Freetown State Forest is its own, and it's right in your backyard. Yep. We're literally here.
Yeah, we're literally, we're in a deforested part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think, you know, we could talk about Hockomock specifically and then the general Freetown stuff or the Bridgewater Triangle stuff. Like, I know some of the listeners, like when we put out, like, what do you want to hear about? Like, definitely Puckwudgies came up multiple times, you know, and I'm sure that's to both Freetown and just the Bridgewater Triangle in general.
All over.
I guess instead of, maybe we talk about the things in general that are experienced in the Triangle and then maybe go if there's some things just in Hockomock or whatever.
Right.
Like, you know, we could address that.
Yeah, sure. So like Freetown, man, like we were talking before the show, it's like a whole other animal.
Yeah.
And there definitely seems to be more of a darker side here in Freetown State Forest than the Hockomock for sure. I mean, we were just talking about like, so for those people listening out there that have never heard about Freetown State Forest, there's the satanic cult stuff in the 70s, murders. People have been murdered here.
Decapitated and tied to trees.
Literally decapitated, tied to a tree.
Yeah.
You know, you got this pedo den thing.
Yeah, I don't even like talking about it.
I don't like talking about it either, but I just mention it because it's evil. You got to mention it because there's a lot of weird stuff, you know.
So what he's talking about, they found this like dwelling kind of built into a hill. Mm-hmm. It looked like a hobbit house.
Yeah, literally.
You look, literally. And then when they went inside, there was like a little chair for a kid.
Yeah.
There's like pentagrams and stuff on the
kids'
wall.
Kids'
clothing, like creepy stuff. Like it's torn down. I believe.
They tore it down.
And they also had there was like a cabin.
Yep.
A cabin out there that was similar type stuff. Just gross. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
so you got that stuff, which is awful.
Yeah.
Then you have cattle
It's not even fun
mutilations.
to investigate that, yeah.
No, that's yeah. So
Leave that one to the authorities.
yeah, exactly. But just goes to show you the darker side here.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's unlike any of the other places in the Bridgewater Triangle for sure.
Yeah.
Just based on, I've only been to the Freetown State Forest to do investigations like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And the last time I went on the spirit box, I got called a bitch. When I asked what their name was, they said, "Why do you care?" They said, "I'm going to get you."
Got the hood rat spirits. You got the hood rats.
Like,
what's up, bitch? Why you here?
Yeah, just like not good.
Yeah, not pleasant. Yeah,
not at all.
Not saying good things. So what was it? What was it? The first thing there that you talked about? Someone said good things.
Oh yeah, something good.
Something good. Yeah.
It was not something good at all,
something good,
dude. So like, just to go to show you, how it seems to be different there.
Sure.
So obviously, then you got UFO claims there and a bunch of other puckwudgies allegedly there. But I do think there's something darker in the Freetown State Forest that's drawing. We were talking about this before the show. That's drawing these things there.
Sure.
Because, like I said, there's people that go in there just to do bad things.
Yeah.
When they put the barbed wire across the bike trail, hoping that somebody would ride through and get caught in the barbed wire or something.
Yeah.
The wild dogs that were running around in there.
Yeah,
things that just like don't happen in real life. You're like, what do you mean a pack of wild dogs? What are you talking about?
It's like all the things, like the weird things that you'd see on what was like an old horror movie, like the Omen or something.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
sure. like weird, what I mean?
Sure, yeah,
wild
right.
dogs like attacking.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy,
It's absurd. But and all that stuff's there. So that's kind of like the I would say the majority of the claims in the Freetown State Forest. I'm trying to think if I left anything out.
In the Freetown Forest, I think there was the Thunderbird.
Thunderbird, that's right, and that's Huckamuck Swamp as well.
So, yeah, I think there's a lot of things that
kind of correlate
in the
multiple
triangle,
locations. Abington is another spot where they saw that bird too.
Yeah.
The cop, that's where the cop saw the bird and he reported it and stuff like that. So
Thunderbird is like a pterodactyl size.
Pterodactyl-like creature. Bird.
Yeah, it's just for people.
For those who doesn't know what a Thunderbird is, yeah.
And then Sasquatch, Bigfoot stuff. You don't hear too much about that anymore.
No, that I felt like there was a peak for that, and then it's kind of quieted down as far as the Bigfoot. I don't know what to make of that.
Fell out of favor. No,
I don't know, or just I don't know.
Knocked down all those trees in Hockomock and bounced.
I've had some experiences with things knocking down trees.
Yeah. Have you heard any like tree knocks or anything?
100%.
Yeah.
Huckamuck Swamp. Yeah, I had. If you want me to tell this experience, I had a 25-minute experience where. It started with a tree, something hitting a tree, and a tree falling in the swamp, and that's kind of like what kicked it off.
Yeah.
And then when I go back and listen to the the audio of it, I catch an EVP at the same time as the tree gets hit, and it sounds like I'm interpreting that as somebody hitting a tree, like physically, with an axe or something. Exerting energy to hit something, and that's exactly what it sounded like. And then boom, this tree falls. So I hear it. I'm like, that's really weird. So I get closer to kind of like investigate what's going on there. I start hearing glass moving, metal moving. Eventually, and like bangs, like huge bangs on trees and stuff. And then I eventually hear. I'll just do the sound for you because I know what it sounds like. Beep boop, beep boop, bang. Beep boop, bang. Just like a huge bang. And we're talking.
So R2D2 was taking trees down?
It sounds kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like it sounds something like that. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And so we're talking like in the swamp.
Yeah.
50, 60 feet in the swamp, sometimes closer, sometimes 30 feet.
Not where there would be an excavator backing up.